This is done from my general study and research on the internet, so you can get your own numbers. These are not exact numbers, but it does start the conversation and just sort of make you think. After living in Brazil for many years, I quickly realized that there is a big difference between poverty in the US, which is a very real, something that we need to address with, we need to work with. Poverty looks different. It's a different kind of poverty. The reasons are different. The causes are different than global poverty. So this was just some numbers that helped me put into that perspective. So when you think about somebody rich, I know the first thing that comes into my mind is that 1%. You've all heard, the 1% of people who are maybe you think billionaires, whatever. For the purpose of this, we will just call it the 1%ers, and they're the people that make more than $1 million every year. So this would be family income. So just to make it general. So family income, more than $1 million. We'll stick those in the 1%. This is my perspective. So then rich. Who do you consider rich in your acquaintances? How much do you think a family has to make per year to be considered rich? So to me, and you'll probably be different, but I'll just put that as a family making $100,000 up to $1 million a year, family income. I would say that person is pretty well off. To me, that would be a rich person. So what would you put middle class? Middle class, then for me, I would say is between about 20,000. Poverty level is about 24,000 for a family of 4. So we'll just say 20,000 to 100,000. So I know this is not everyone's reality, but this is what is in my head. Okay? So then we have middle class. And then we have poor. What's the official poverty line in the US or whatever? I would say it's under $20,000 for a family per year. All right. So I looked up the numbers for basically in the United States who's in these sections, and it's really crazy to me to think it's actually not 1%. There's not 1% of the U.S. that have $100 or $1 million a year or more. It's actually 5%. So 5% of Americans are in this top little bit. And then rich people, defined by Rachel as 100,000 to $1 million a year, is actually about 25% of our population. I don't know. I think that was a little more than I thought it was, but okay, good for them. And then middle class we've got here is 60%. About 60% of Americans make between 20,000 to 100,000. Definitely in that box there. And then those who are in poverty, 10%. 10% of Americans are basically under the line of poverty when you see those different statistics. Kids needing food, going hungry, those kind of things that would be in that section. So this is basically a quick breakdown, and you might see wealth in different ways or whatever, but a basic breakdown, generally speaking, of how things are for the United States. So my question now is, what do you think those percentages are for global wealth? So global wealth is where we get that 1%, because there's actually 1% of the world that makes more than $1 million. So it's actually less than 1%, but yeah. So that's where the 1% thing comes from. Rich people who are considered rich by $100,000 a year to $1 million yearly income in the world, 8%. Now, it was 25% in the US. So you can see how the breakdown is like really different here. And then middle class, as defined at 20,000 to 100,000 for a family. In the world, 18%. In the US, it's about 60. So if your huge bracket of people, so what people call normal in the United States is here, it's not for the world. It's not for the world. So what do we got here? We got 73% here. 73% who are living off of $20,000 a year or less for their family, for a whole family income. And when we were in Brazil, when we were missionaries, we always were in this section. We made $20,000 or less a year, and we lived off of that comfortably in Brazil. And it's crazy to then come back to the United States and be like, there's a lot more. And so yes, costs are different, things are different that way, but when you look at it, and we said the poverty line in the United States is about 24,000, so we'll say about 20,000 for a family of 4. But in the world, the global poverty level, do you know what the global poverty level is? So like people don't even consider themselves poor if they're not in the global poverty level in general in these countries. It is, you guys are not gonna believe this, $700 a year income for their family, for a family, $700 a year. So anyways, I just think this is sort of eye-opening and saying, oh my goodness, there is a lot of different what normal looks like for the world than for the United States. What it means to be in poverty, what you make for a family, and what you think you can survive off of. And I'm not saying they are surviving well, and a lot of these aren't either. These people aren't either. A lot of it is mentality. I totally understand it. But there's a lot of different cultural differences in understanding what is normal for the world and what is normal for the U.S. as well. And so I am not saying that it is not important to serve and to help out locally. I think you should. I think you should even before you are serving internationally or helping out internationally. But I never think that it should be an either or. I think it definitely has to be an and. And just to realize the scope, sort of zone out and get the bigger picture, for sure.